Okay, good day, everybody. Thank you for joining us on yet another episode of the Destiny Education webinar. And today we are having a phenomenal conversation, and we have a phenomenal guest with us in the studio today. Uh, it's going to be an interesting conversation today, trust me. Today's conversation is around the subject of future proofing your career, becoming an indispensable professional. And we have Abisola Bantifa with us today in the studio, and she's going to be sharing with us on how to become an indispensable professional. And so, before we start out the conversation, I'd like to just sort of read out her bio so we get to have a feel of who our guest is. And I believe that will give a bit of context to the conversation. So Abisola Bantefar is a strategy and transformation expert with over 15 years of experience across industries, including technology, consulting, aviation, oil and gas, education, and international development. She's currently the Chief Strategy Officer of Pro Dev Agri Invest. She has led successful turnaround, designed SOPs, SLAs, and organizational framework adapted by leading institution, and she has built a reputation as a trusted strategist. She has contributed to projects with organizations such as the Central Bank of Nigeria, NNPC, ExxonMobil, Cartel Center, and MacArthur Foundation. She has a computer science bachelor's degree and an MBA from the University of East London, alongside multiple professional certifications. Abisola is recognized for driving sustainable growth and passionate about innovation, mentorship, and institutional reform. Abisola, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah.
Fantastic. So, as we delve into our conversation today, my very first question to you, fully just reading, first of all, I would say to you that your bio is quite impressive, and knowing fully well that you have over 15 years of industry experience across different sectors. And so that makes you well suited for this conversation. So, my very first question to you today is, from your own perspective, what quality would you say makes a professional truly indispensable?
So thank you, Sarigwe, for having me. So I'll just try to respond to your question based on my own experience. And I would say adaptability
Okay.
first, being able to adapt to different
Mm-hmm.
contexts. Uh, as you read my bio, you realize that I've worked in different sectors, and what has made it work out for me is because I've been able to adapt to the different sectors in which I worked in.
Mm.
Another one I'll say is problem solving skills.
Okay.
You must be able to apply yourself and be able to um, critically think through a situation and find solutions to them.
Mm.
Another thing I'll say is emotional intelligence. A lot of people tend to be controlled by their emotions. As you work with people,
Okay.
you will definitely develop certain emotions because people will piss you off. I
Mm-hmm.
like to tell people that I trust computers, machines. They are more trustworthy than people, but you must be able to bring your emotions to subjection and
Okay.
so emotional intelligence is
Yeah.
very important. Another thing is to be able to continuously learn as you move or you pivot from one sector to the other. You need to be able to learn and relearn because as you move around, realize that certain things are not useful where you are going to. Some of the things you're coming with
Mm-hmm.
are also useful where you're going, and you can also apply that. The last thing I'll say is you have to be reliable. People have to be able to trust you. They give you something, you get it done. So those are the things that, off the top of my head, I'm able to share.
Fantastic, fantastic. I like the fact that you highlight.
Thank you.
I like the fact that you highlighted that regardless of the context, there are certain skills that are transferable. That being a problem solver, being emotionally intelligent, being dependable, and being reliable. Those are like transferable, skills. So thank you so much for emphasizing on that. And so my next question to you at this time is, with the workplace changing so rapidly, how can professionals start preparing today to stay ahead? Because there's so many changes happening, so many things happening so fast right now. So how can people just sort of prepare to sort of stay ahead?
Okay, so one thing that is really changing is that people are turning more to AI these days. I would say that is a factor in this current work environment. So I would say people should learn digital skills and AI and how to best use AI for their own. So I'll say that. I'll say also everyone should learn how to cultivate a growth mindset. You have to continuously learn. Uh, there's a saying that goes, when you stop learning, you die,
Mm,
right?
mm-hmm.
Certain soft skills in terms of communication, leadership, collaboration, and networking. This is
Mm,
important because even though we use AI, AI is not going to solve all our problems. Human beings are relational.
yeah,
So we need to learn how to properly communicate, pass the message across, whether in writing
yeah.
or verbally, so that people do not misunderstand you. So that's very important. And then we need to be able to build our own personal brand, something I'm constantly and consistently working on. You have to continuously build your brand.
Fantastic, fantastic. I like how you sort of interwove the answers, providing different illustrations. Like, okay, as much as AI is relevant, however, there's just still that need to sort of lean into cultivating relationships and also building personal brand. So thank you so much for highlighting that. As we read your bio, one of the things that stood out was the fact that you've led a lot of organization turnaround, in the course of your career thus far. So, in your experience in leading organization turnaround, what would you say are some of like the key lessons that an individual can take and apply, let's say, on their career journey?
Okay, so one thing I know, after having worked in a few consultancy organizations, it's important as someone when you get into an organization and you're trying to create solution or you're trying to implement certain things. Uh, it's one thing for them to tell you, this is the problem we have,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's another thing for you to be able to diagnose.
Mm,
So you can diagnose the problems that they have by using whether a diagnostic tool or just by observing and asking relevant questions, and taking your notes down to be able to say this is exactly what the problem is. Once you're able to identify the problem, just like in science, you need to identify the problem first. Once you're able to identify the problem, then you then now need to prioritize which problem is important, which is necessary, which is urgent. Because the truth is, when you get into so you focus on what you can solve and
mm,
prioritize. Another thing is being able to communicate, which is very critical. In organizations, you need to be able to manage people's perceptions. When you get into a place and you're trying to solve a problem, people have different perceptions to change. Some people are open to change. Some others are resistant to change, and some people are indifferent. And those ones that are indifferent can either they can tilt either way. They can tilt towards being open, or they can tilt towards being resistant, depending on how the information is communicated. So you have to be able to communicate, which is very critical. The last thing is you need to be resilient. So you definitely have setbacks, but setbacks shouldn't deter you from what your mission is. But bear in mind that you might not be able to achieve everything, but you also need to, as I said, prioritize what needs to be done and what is urgent and what can be delivered within a short period of time. So you need to be resilient. Don't feel bad about it. If it doesn't work now, try another approach, and so on and so forth.
Hmm. I like the fact that you talked about, you know, people probably within an organization are sometimes resistant to change. So in cases like that, what would you sort of recommend as a strategy to deal with that sort of subtle opposition to change?
So I know that there was a certain organization I joined, and in the environment. I just get somewhere and people were a bit standoffish, like who's she, what's she coming to do? And people were a bit resistant and all of that. So I just basically observed, got to know everyone individually. And for me, that worked. And for different settings, different approaches will work. But I started to engage, get to know them, know how to speak, because every individual is different. And the way you deal with this person is different from we deal with the other person. So I got to understand everyone. With time, people got to relax and they were a bit more open to me. And that way, then you can influence them.
Mm.
So communication, like I said at the beginning, is very critical, um, because you are able to influence or not. Emotional intelligence is also very critical when you are communicating. So those two things, I was able to marry them together and able to get the desired result.
Fantastic, fantastic. Hmm. I like how you emphasize the fact that there's a lot of observation as regards to change, and there are lots of patience and just being willing to deal with each individual in that context as an individual, not generalizing things. So thank you so much for emphasizing on that. So my next question to you at this time is, we're still having the conversation around future proofing your career as a professional. How important would you rate like global exposure, high education, in shaping a professional's competitiveness in today's world?
I didn't hear a part of the question.
Okay, so the question is, how important is global exposure and global education in shaping a professional's competitiveness in today's market?
Okay, I'll say global exposure broadens your perspective. It lets you see the opportunities beyond your local boundaries, right? You're able to see that, oh, life does not start and end in Nigeria, for instance. There's life elsewhere, there are different cultures elsewhere, there are different ways of doing things, there are different ways to approach things. Another thing is that it helps you sharpen competitiveness. I believe that employers these days are looking at talent who are able to navigate multicultural environments. So whilst when I say multicultural environment, so I'll give an example. Uh, as I started my career, there was something I learned, right? Uh, there was a certain employer I worked with that helped me see that Nigerians, when they send emails, they can be very direct. They can come off as a bit rude, and they don't actually mean it. Communication, we are going back there because that's a very important critical factor. Um, when you communicate, when you write, written communication is different from verbal communication. So, um, as I started to learn that and navigate, because we were now having conversations with people in the US, in the UK, I started to learn how to write better because I started to not write direct because you can come off as rude. So I needed to watch the language, the tone, because writing communication is completely different from speaking. Because when you're speaking, the person can hear your tone, they can hear how you sound. But when you're writing and you just write it, it can come off as rude. So, yes, employers are looking for people who can easily navigate. And that's why you get into an environment, some set of people, they don't allow them to send emails. They cannot send emails because they don't trust you to send emails. The last and final thing I will say is that it's not global exposure is not about traveling abroad.
No, we
It's
also the
just
question also
about
entailed
engaging the global community.
the question also entailed global education as well. So you're in alignment. The question entailed global
Okay.
exposure and global education.
Yes. Okay. What was the question about global education?
No, it's they're together, right? So the question is how relevant is global exposure and global education? So you were answering the question, and then you mentioned.
Also,
So I was saying that it's in alignment. It's alignment. So you could go on.
okay. So it's not just about traveling abroad, right? You need to engage the global community, online education uh, opportunities. So and I know that when you get to do online courses, you get to mix and mingle from diverse environments, people from all over the world. They could be Americans, they could be Kenyans, they could be Arabs, they could be from everywhere. You get to interact with them. So you can also get to learn what they know, you can collaborate. And so it's not about visiting the country, it's also about being able to tap into their intellectual property.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right. So this will definitely be our final question for you today on this episode of the webinar. It is if you had to, recommend just three practical steps right now that professionals can take right now to help them on their journey towards being indispensable in their field, what would those steps be?
I will say build strategic relationships.
Hmm.
Uh, I'll say it's important that we build relationships.
So I think when you mention things,
Cultivate
give context and
mentorships.
explain it.
Okay. I would say that the way I build relationships might not necessarily be uh, the norm, but there might be something to learn from it. So over the years, I have met people that
Okay.
I have kept within my circle.
Mm, okay.
and I've cultivated, and I'm someone who relationships, regardless of how the relationship might have started. So it could be that um, me and somebody got off on the wrong foot. But I always tell myself that every bad child has its good days. So I keep them because I believe that there's a reason why they came into my life. So it might
Okay.
not be your typical way of networking, but that's my network. And I can tell you for those relationships have evolved into something very beautiful in terms of my career and how I'm um, processing and planning my career in the future. Most of them have been there to support, to provide mentorship, to give guidance, etc. So that's one way. So mentorship, collaboration. I've also collaborated with some of them. I've also applied my skills to help and support their own work. And, that's very key. So it's not all about taking from people, it's also about giving, in cultivating relationships. The second thing I will say is always aim to deliver value. You can never go wrong with delivering value. Because a friend of mine told me one day, said, Bisola, I'm looking for money. And I said, don't look for money, aim to deliver value. Because when you give value, money will find you. People will mention your name in rooms you've never walked into. And for me, that's important. And that has been my mantra.
Mhm.
And so I aim to deliver value. I tell people what is worth doing at all is worth doing well. So if I go into it, I go into it head on and I ensure that.
Okay. That second one, what's the last one? What's the last one? It's three things.
Okay, so the
That's the
last one
second
will
one.
be
Deliver
that's
value.
so the last one will be improve on yourself. So learning is important. You cannot afford to be stagnant. Everybody is moving every day. There's a change every day, every time. Uh, that's very important. So I'm someone learn about everything, whether it's my health or my career or whatever. I remember having a conversation with someone this morning. Oh, I'm doing meal prep that I'm taking to work. And the person was like, "What are you making?" And I said, I'm having kimchi and over easy eggs. And the person says, well, what's kimchi? And then I told the person what kimchi was and what's it for. And then I said, oh, it helps with gut health. Say, where are you learning all these things from? A lot, I've been in a lot, I'm in a lot, and still going into a lot. So and those are the things that push me to keep learning. So it's important that we keep learning because the world is changing around us.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much, Abisala, for sharing with us today. The session has been really insightful, and I believe that our audience has learned a lot from your wealth of wisdom and expertise that you've shared with us today. Thank you so much.